Winter is coming and you're gonna want to bundle up because it looks like the global economy is slowing down. Europe is facing its worst cost of living crisis in its modern history as inflation continues to get worse, and Goldman Sachs even said that the UK needs to prepare because inflation could pass 22% in 2023, while workers in the UK are striking and refusing to go to work because they aren't getting paid enough relative to inflation, while their economy is on the verge of entering a recession if they haven't already entered one, while the UK is also facing its worst currency crisis in decades. And then on top of all of that, you have some countries in Europe that are facing such a bad energy crisis that in some places people are waiting days in their cars just to get some fuels. And then to top it all off, you have the major economic slowdown in China. But I want to focus on Europe in this video. A lot of these economic concerns are due to the energy crisis that are happening right now, and people use the most energy when you're in winter because you need the energy to heat your homes, which is why people are getting worried about the economy getting worse for winter. Now, if you're wondering, Jaspreet, you're in America, why does it matter what's happening in Europe? Well, it's because Europe is one of the biggest trading partners with the United States. The United States buys around $500 billion worth of stuff or goods every year from the EU, and the EU buys about $300 billion worth of stuff from the United States every single year. So if the European economy is starting to slow down, that means people and businesses have less money, and that means they have less money to buy stuff from us. And there could also be issues with currency and inflation, which impact how much we have to pay for their stuff. Not to mention the fact that many people in Europe actually invest in the United States stock market, the New York Stock Exchange. That's where people around the world invest their money. And so if you have people there not having money, they're going to have less money to put into our markets. And so this is why you want to be aware, not just what's happening in your own country, but what's happening in the global economy, because they could foreshadow or give you some insight as to what's happening in the broader world and our own economy. There are two primary factors that are contributing to the economic slowdown in Europe, which could also trigger a global recession. Number one is the energy crisis, which I hinted at, and number two is inflation. Let me start by diving a little bit deeper into what's going on with this energy crisis and what might be coming. The issue ultimately is Europe doesn't produce all of their own energy. They rely on other countries to get a lot of their own energy, and a major provider of their energy is Russia. 40% of Europe's gas and 45% of Europe's coal and 20% of Europe's oil comes directly from Russia. And after Russia invaded Ukraine, the amount of energy coming from Russia to Europe, whether it's natural gas or oil or coal, has been severely limited. In fact, Russia just announced that they'll be keeping the Nord Stream 1 pipeline shut down indefinitely. The Nord Stream 1 is a pipeline that sends gas from Russia over to Europe. And last year, the Nord Stream 1 sent 35% of Europe's gas from Russia through that pipeline. And Russia has shut this pipeline down indefinitely because they're saying that there's a potential gas leak and they don't want to risk sending gas through it. Now, you have other people that are saying that it could be a potential way of economic warfare, that maybe there is no gas leak. Maybe Russia is doing this on purpose in order to inflict more pain onto Europe. Why? Because many European countries imposed sanctions on Russia after Russia invaded Ukraine. The European countries didn't like that Russia did that, so then they started putting these sanctions on Russia, and this could be a way that Russia is now trying to almost get payback because of the sanctions that the European countries put onto Russia. And so this is what people are worried about. What's going to happen when winter comes? Because that's when people need the most energy. If Russia then decides to play this economic warfare and they turn off all energy supplies to Europe, that would be bad for Russia because now they're not getting paid for the energy that they're sending. But it could be even worse for Europe, who's already facing an energy crisis, who's already facing high inflation, and who's already facing an economic slowdown. So this is the chess match that Russia is trying to play, and the people that are paying the price are, of course, the people in Europe and the people in Russia, and of course, the people in Ukraine, and now the people in the United States too. Not to mention the rest of the world. We broke this all down in Market Briefs, which is my free financial newsletter, but energy costs today in Europe are 600% higher than they were just 1 year ago. And electricity costs are 300% higher today than they were just 1 year ago. So the cost to heat your home or to really do anything are significantly more expensive today, many multiples more expensive today than they were 1 year ago. This is why, again, people are worried about what's going to happen when winter comes. Now, of course, if you want to stay up to date with things that are happening, not just in the global economy, but the things that are also happening in our economy here, you have to join Market Briefs. It is a free resource that I created where my team is breaking down what happens not only in the global economy, but inflation, the stock market, the crypto market, and the real estate market into a fun, witty, and easy to read email. You can read it in less than 5 minutes every morning, and I promise you are going to love waking up to Market Briefs every morning. So if you want to join Market Briefs, it's completely free. And I'll put the link to how you can join Market Briefs down in the description below. This energy crisis is why Britain is estimating that they will have something around 8.5 million UK households that will suffer from energy poverty this winter. It has gotten so bad that some cities have implemented or thought about implementing blackouts, where you'll have energy on for 6 hours and then they're gonna turn off all energy and electricity in the city for a couple hours. That way they can conserve energy for the whole city and the whole town. And this brings me to the topic of European inflation, because Europe, kind of like the United States, printed a whole bunch of money to stimulate the economy while they were aggressively cutting interest rates as a way to stimulate the economy after the pandemic. Today, not surprisingly, many European countries are suffering because of all the money printing, because now they have all this high inflation. Now you can couple this high inflation with high energy prices, and you can see why many economists are worried about European countries and the European Union heading into a recession. So you have super high inflation. You have the economy slowing down. They've already seen 3/4 of economic slowdown, so that's more than what we have in the United States. And on top of that, their central bank is working very aggressively to raise interest rates in order to bring inflation down. So what does that mean? Higher interest rates mean a slower economy, which means more pain to the economy, hopefully to bring inflation down. Now, I know I'm speaking in generalities because what's happening in Britain is different than what's happening in Germany, it's different than what's happening in Italy, but I'm trying to speak on a very general level here, where the European economy in general, the EU, is struggling because you have a slowing economy, you have rising inflation, and you have central banks working to raise interest rates as a way to bring inflation down. Like, for example, Germany just passed a new stimulus bill which will help consumers fight inflation through more economic aid. Now, the real question is this more government spending going to actually ease inflation like they wanted to, or is it going to make inflation worse? Well, I think we already know the answer to that. Time will tell. But this is where you want to be paying attention to what's happening, not just here, but the global economy, because now you have some of the biggest economies in the world, not the United States, not China. We'll talk about China in a different video. But you have the United States, you have all these European countries that are really struggling. You have the entire EU that is on the brink of a recession. And this could be a domino that pushes many other countries into an economic slowdown or a recession, or depending on what the Federal Reserve Bank does, even potentially a depression, which brings us to here. What does this mean for you and what you should be doing? The first thing that I think this teaches us on a macro level into a micro level is the importance of being able to rely on yourselves. Europe really relied heavily on other countries like Russia to take care of them on the energy side. And now, because Russia is playing these games, they're paying the price. Now, what does this mean for us? Well, of course, we could talk about the American economy and things that we can do to be more self-reliant, to bring more manufacturing here. But let's talk more about an individual micro level, where instead of us relying on other people, the government or other entities to take care of us, it is much more important for us to be self-reliant, to invest our money, to build wealth, that way we don't need to rely on other entities in order to take care of us. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about. It is extremely important for you and everyone to really be able to take care of yourself and not want to rely on the government to take care of you. It's nice if the government can give you more stuff. It's nice if the government can take better care of you, but you should not want to rely solely on the government to take care of you. Instead, you want to become financially independent yourself. That way you don't have to rely on any other entity, because when things go wrong, then you could lose all those benefits, and now you're the one that's paying the price, and you don't want to be in that predicament. You want to be the one that's in charge. So how do you do that? Well, you have to spend less than what you make and need to invest the difference. The reality is, when you have economic downturns, when you have market downturns, these create opportunities for people who are financially educated and people who are financially prepared. So now, financially educated means being able to identify good opportunities, because when bad things happen in the economy, when bad things happen in the world, asset prices fall, stock prices fall, real estate prices can fall, cryptocurrency prices can fall. This can create an opportunity for you to come in, find good investments, and buy them at a discounted price. But that requires you, again, to be financially educated, know what to buy, but also be prepared. That means have cash put aside. How can you have cash put aside? Well, that means when times are okay or when times are good, you're preparing. That means you're not always spending all of your money like everybody else is doing, because we live in a culture where it's completely normal to live at or beyond your means thanks to the help of credit cards and debt. Instead, you want to be living below your means, pay off your credit card, create a margin that way now you have some cash put aside, not just to buy you a big screen TV, but to take advantage of opportunities in the asset markets, stocks, real estate, crypto, whatever it might be. That way when these things go on sale, now you can come in and buy at a discount, which will make you wealthier in the long term. This is the things that you want to be paying attention to, because there's a lot of different things happening, not just here, but in the world. I'll be talking about some of the other things that are happening in the world. But if you want to stay up to date, easier, just join Market Briefs. It is a free resource that I created. That way, if you're an investor, you can stay up to date on what's happening. And it's a super simple breakdown of what's happening in the markets. It's much more difficult to go out and earn $1 million than it is to be worth $1 million. It's significantly more difficult to earn $1 million than it is to sell something worth $1 million. Yet they both can put $1 million in your pocket. So if you want to become a millionaire, it's easier for you to understand how to do this than it is to do this.